What's up, guys? Welcome to the Black Seats. We're in the midst of spring training, so I'm here to talk about the Yankees roster and basically give my roster for the regular season as I see what I imagine the roster look like on opening day, as well as speculate on certain factors and like wild cards or players that could return or be moved up in the regular season throughout the regular season. So I'm gonna start off with the lineup because I actually one of my gripes last year, and if you watched any of our postseason series with me and Joel, like I was very displeased with the 2020 New York Yankees. So, obviously, like a lot of people watching this, I went into the off season not too optimistic and obviously kind of underrating the team that we have that we had um even before different changes were being taken or changes were made to the roster in off season. So one of my major gripes with the team is and we kind of saw it like being pretty much like exploited in the series against Tampa, which was the left-handed, which was the right-handed heavy lineup that we put out every night. That actually returned this season, but if you look at like the lineup we have, like it's really, really deep, and it's really a lineup that if it isn't the best in Major League Baseball, it can be put up against any of the best lineups in Major League Baseball. And I think right-handed or left-handed pitchers will still have like a tough time getting through that lineup. So I'm gonna give my thoughts as to how the lineup will be constructed. It probably won't be too dissimilar to the lineups that we saw in 2020, but it goes as such. The Yankees brought back DJ LeMahieu, which was like a really huge deal, and I was in heavy anticipation for them to resign him because won the batting title last year. He's an extremely professional hitter, and my thing about like entering a long term deal with him is that his skill is hitting, is putting the ball in play is something he's done all throughout his career. Back when he was in Colorado, where for whatever reason it was like extremely undervalued, so that it came to a point that when he hit free agency and the Yankees were able to sign him, it kind of was like like who cares? Like you know, if we all remember like that all season, we really wanted like Manny Machado or Bryce Harper. We wanted like the really big fish, and then they went on and got DJ LeMahieu, and DJ LeMahieu had a really good 2019. Hit like a really huge home run that got us excited for like about a half of an inning. Um, but he's been really huge since he's been here, so it's really great that he came back. And I think one of the things is, like I said, his skill is hitting and making contact and putting the ball in play. And that's something, giving somebody a longer term contract or going into like a multitude of years, and it shouldn't be too frightening because you look at somebody like Ichiro Suzuki, like Ichiro, his whole career was, hitting for a high average and putting the ball in play. And he did that for basically like almost 30 years between the major leagues and Japan. And it's something I never floundered with him. Like he was always putting up pretty good batting averages and getting a lot of hits. So it's something that didn't worry me in signing somebody like a DJ LeMahieu to a long term deal. So I'm really, really glad like he came back, and it's for 6 years, and they kind of ironed out like the annual average value of the contract so that It isn't too like damning on the luxury tax or the competitive balance tax. And who knows, perhaps, it'd be even more friendly in this next CBA. Lord willing, those conversations and that whole process goes smoothly with the Players Association and MLB. Next up, we have Aaron Judge batting second. When I started watching baseball and throughout the whole history of baseball, the tradition had always been to have like your power hitter, um, bat cleanup, and your first two batters would be like your speed guys, or at least guys that had a higher on base percentage. But in the sabermetric analytics era that we're in, it's way more value to have your best hitters bat at the top of the lineup because the old way of doing things, if you bat Judge cleanup, like that means the starting pitcher, like if he went 1, 2, 3 against the three, the first three hitters before you even get to Judge, that means Judge wouldn't be coming to the plate until the second inning. So by pushing him up to second, you get way more at bats out of him, and then you have somebody like LeMahieu and somebody at Judge that hits for like tremendous power. You're talking about starting a game off, you know, 2-0, 1-0, depending on if the ball goes over the wall or the ball, goes into the gap. So it's it's a change in baseball that I actually was unsure of, but I'm really glad they did it because it makes sense now. Third, we have Hicks. Of course, he's a switch hitter. And as I go through the lineup, everybody except Hicks is traditional right-handed hitter, and Hicks is a switch hitter, so that does help that against a right-handed batter after facing two righties, you could he turns around and bats from the opposite side, and obviously it's extremely helpful against a left-handed pitcher because then the entire lineup is, as Mr. Burns says, where the percentages favor the right-handed batter. So that's why he's batting third. I know a lot of people was like, "Why is Hicks batting third?" But Hicks is a really good hitter in his own right. Like when he's on, like he's really damn good at the plate. And he's kind of sometimes he can be feast or famine, but like when he's hot, like he's really really good. We got Stanton at DH. I was really really disappointed that the postseason didn't go on for much longer because definitely in the Cleveland series and then in the series against Tampa, it really, really looked like John Carlos Stanton was gonna have one of those like historic postseasons. Unfortunately, baseball is a team sport, so when you're playing well, sometimes you're playing really good. Sometimes really good isn't even good enough to carry your team farther than where they end up. But I'm really excited, of course, with him, and of course with Judge. I didn't mention with Judge, and also with Hicks. Period. I guess like the overall theme with the Yankees is injuries. 2019 we had the next man up, but over the last 2018, 2019, 2020, like injuries, period, have been are no pun intended, our Achilles heel. Like it's really been our weakness and the area that has come back to bite us every season. We got Voit batting righty, playing first base. I got him fifth. Voit, another person where definitely has good at bats, great attitude, stays on the field. He played through an injury in the end of last season into the playoffs. Was described as foot stuff, but he says all of that is healed up. So hopefully he once again has like a really good season, another like diamond in the rough. Great find by the Yankees front office. Now, who I have batting sixth is somebody who's a little bit controversial, polarizing in Yankee fan communities. You watch the show, seeing what I talk about. I'm still always a huge fan because I just feel like, somebody who could put the bat on the baseball the way this person does, you can't give up on them, especially at their position. And, I discussed it too in the postseason wrap up where I think, with the pandemic and quarantine, I think a lot of that stuff weighed heavy on him because he was unable to be around his family as much as he wanted, around his kids as much as he wanted. And the person I'm talking about is Gary Sanchez. For one, I feel like he's prime for a huge bounce back season. And for him, like, that doesn't even mean like MVP. Like he has to hit 40 home runs, knocking 120 runs. I think like if Gary Sanchez could come in this season and bat like 260, 270, and then 25 to 30 home runs, knocking 80 to 90 runs, I think it would definitely be a bounce back for him. Something I've noticed in the first few games we've had in spring training where he's been hitting the ball really well. Like he cleared the batter's eye the other day. He's gone with a two-handed approach, which means like he doesn't let go of the bat with both hands until he has a full he's fully swung the bat. So hopefully that's something I could get him to put the ball in play because one of the critiques I've had on him is that he's another guy that's kind of like feast or famine. Like he really like he comes to the plate wanting to hit for extra bases and stuff like that. And I think he's such a good hitter. Like if he just put the ball in play more, like he'd get a lot more singles, a lot more doubles in the gaps, stuff like that. And he's such a tremendous hitter and has so much power. Like, he would still end up getting his share of home runs, probably not the huge amounts, but I mean, he hit, a good solid amount of home runs. Last year, he hit a good solid amount of home runs in 2019, but his batting average was low. So I think if he still hit like a decent amount of home runs, but hit for a higher average, I think it would be way more helpful for the team. But hey, if he could hit for a high average and hit a lot of home runs, that'd be great too. So I personally believe he has a really promising season. Another person who had like a down year, I have him batting seventh, and people were hoping that the Yankees would have found another shortstop to replace him because he had a bad year in the field at shortstop, and that's Gleyber Torres. Had a pretty bad year in the field, had a pretty bad year at the plate. I think again last year was such a quirky year with the pandemic and the 60 game shortened season, the postseason bubble, all that stuff. All that stuff does factor in. I think like we've all lived through the pandemic and life is a lot different. They call it what the new normal. But I think, Glaber is so talented. Again, another guy you can't just give up on, especially this early in his career. Like he's still like really, really young. And he's really, really promising. He's definitely one of them dudes you could see being like the cornerstone of the New York Yankees for like years. So hopefully he worked on his fielding in the offseason, improved that, worked with Marcus Timms and any of the other staff on the coaching department on hitting to improve himself at the plate, see where he could improve in that department, what kind of holes he had in his swing last year. So I got him batting seventh. Eighth, I have Clint. This is the one thing I remember the whole off season. I was just really hoping for Clint Frazier. He's really had like a tough go of it. Especially when you're a New York Yankee, you're kind of expected to be, very professional business type, personalities. Sometimes it's great. We've seen it with like Reggie Jackson, Babe Ruth. and those people, but the archetype Yankee is the stoic, Derek Jeter, Thurman Munson, Joe DiMaggio, Lou Gehrig, like the strong silent type. So he's really had like a tough time. He's really put in the work and worked hard. He's always had like a great bat. His swing is just one of the most lethal looking things. Closest thing I could recall, I could think of with like Clint Frazier, with just like he looks like he wants to kill the baseball every time he comes up to the plate. It kind of reminds me of Gary Sheffield, former Yankee, all around great hitter. I'm not trying to put that kind of career on him, but no, it wouldn't be a bad thing if that's what he turned out to be. But his swing definitely reminds me of that. He's shown flashes in the past. I think last year he exhibited those skills. So now he finally has the opportunity, and now it's time to see what he does with it. And I have a lot of hope and a lot of belief in Clint Frazier going into the season. And lastly, he's kind of banged up at the moment. Going through a elbow, recovering from an elbow surgery over the off season. We didn't even really know that he was even injured, but of course, with the Yankees and the injuries, you know, how can we be surprised? Um, Actually, like he provide, like I really and truly, again, if you watched any of our postseason series, I really just wish like I had the Men in Black flash thing to just like erase it out of my mind. But the one thing from 2020 that I do enjoy seeing replays of, and is a fond memory, is in Game 2 of the wild card series against Cleveland in Cleveland, where Tanaka had that really bad start. They basically had him pitching in like a monsoon or like a hurricane. And the Yankees fell behind early, came back a little bit, and then fell behind again. And Urshela came up, hit this huge grand slam, and they tied the game again. And obviously the Yankees had to fight back, and they still ended up winning. But that grand slam was probably like the single best moment of the last of 2020. But I got him about a ninth. It's not any slight to him. He's a really good hitter. He's shown that his 2020 showed that 2019 was no fluke. So I'm really, I'm one of those people that was, not a true believer. After 2019, I was like, I need to see more of it. And he's definitely one guy that showed he belonged, that he improved, and he definitely looks like the real deal. So I got him at third and batting ninth. But the way I look at it is batting ninth just means like you're the leadoff hitter for the lineups, like second turn at bat. To me, that's what I feel like. So that's why I have him batting ninth. So, I could see him getting on base. And then I think of it this way, like him batting and being backed up by LeMahieu, Judge, and Hicks. And then on the bench, of course, you got Higashioka. I know a lot of people, I don't mind Higashioka as a backup. I'm partial to Austin Roma myself, but a lot of people were after, the fiasco at catcher in the postseason. I still hold a belief. I feel like if Gary would have caught Tanaka in the third game of the series, I feel like Tanaka would have pitched better just based off of like familiarity. That's neither here nor there. But Higashioka, I got him obviously on the bench at catcher because obviously you're gonna need a catcher. But he is a guy. He's been a really good hitter in AAA. He's shown some signs of that in the major leagues. He's kind of like a quadruple A type of dude, but that's really good for your backup catcher because usually like your backup catcher is like just like the defensive guy that kind of hit like a lick, or like the personal catcher, which something we'll talk about in a little bit. Gardner. came back surprisingly at the end of the off season. There's something about bringing him back. I know a lot of people were back and forth with it because he's over the hill, and at this point, a lot of people feel like bringing him back is more of a like a ceremonious thing. A lot of people joke about him entering his like 40th spring training with the Yankees, but he's a great dude. I think of him like Dustin Pedroia, who just recently retired. I like that. I really thought like Dustin Pedroia like retired like in 2017, but apparently he was still on the Red Sox for the past couple seasons. And if Gardner's in that type of role, I don't mind it. Like I was always had the belief for at least the stance that if Gardner did come back, as long as it was understood that Clint would be starting in the outfield and not Gardner, and Gardner would be coming off the bench, I wouldn't mind that at all. Like Gardy's been like a great Yankee, been like a real like ambassador for the Yankees, and is the longest tenured Yankee. So glad to see that he's back. But I got him on the outfield on the bench because I could see him playing left and center field. Never really seen him play right in recent years, but he's got the ability to do it. Other person on the bench I have is Dietrich. I feel like he's gonna break camp with the team because they need an infielder that can hit. And I'm told by Baseball Reference that he plays second, third, and left field, so he could definitely spell in those positions. But if he plays those positions, you obviously need a backup shortstop. So of course, once again, we'll bring back Tyler Wade. Tyler Wade, I've never really understood because he's always seemed like he was gonna be like he's always been like a really good hitter at the minor league level, but it just has never translated in the major leagues, and that's why people have apprehension to him on the major league bench. So that's my outlook on the lineup and the position players. I didn't realize it would go this long, so I'm actually gonna split this in two. And the next video, I'm gonna talk about the pitching rotation. So stay tuned for that.